Mesdames et messieurs,
The greatest festival of our contemporary society, the Olympic Games, is about to begin.
This is gonna be close.
Oh! They're all completely gassed! They've given it everything on the global bucket! Oh, yeah! Go! Oh!
Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. But that is an Olympic championship.
Ready?
Hello and welcome to another episode of Keep the Flame Alive, the podcast for fans of the Olympics and Paralympics. If you love the games, we are the show for you. I am your host, Jill Jarris, joined as always by my lovely co-host, Alison Brown. Alison, hello, how are you?
I am fearful that I may have insulted the entire country of Canada.
I don't want to say what'd you do, but how could that be possible?
And I need to rectify this because I made a comment about Sid Crosby being old.
Uh-oh.
So I have the utmost respect for Sidney Crosby, and he is Sid the Kid, and I apologize to the entire country of Canada for denigrating your national treasure like that.
Please, Canada, accept the apology.
I know, and you know how much I love Canadians.
Yes.
I would
and
never.
And you love Sidney Crosby as well.
Yes. I was saying we need to protect him because he's so important. But I misspoke. So please, Canadians, forgive me.
I think that was a yes.
I hope
so. You know what else is a yes?
Our patron of the week.
That's right. We have one last patron, a shout out for 2025, and that is the esteemed J. Brian Carberry. Brian, you have been such a valued member of our patron community. Huge support you always give us, and fun chats all year long.
And when we say we can't do the show without patrons, we really could not do the show without a lot of the support that Brian has given us. So we are forever grateful, and just an amazing human being, feels like. And he travels and sends us the best Olympic and Paralympic pictures of things he finds all over the place.
Yes. So, Brian, thank you so much for all of the support you've given the show and for being such a good friend to the show. We really appreciate you, and I look forward to having you listen for many more years.
And if you want to shout out, how do you do it, Jill?
You go to flamealivepod.com/support for more information. You know who else is a legend?
This was exciting.
Oh, I was so excited for you and quite jealous because you got to talk with esteemed bobsledder Elana Meyers Taylor. I was in a car driving across Indiana or Ohio at the time and could not make it, but bring us in for this one.
So Elana is the most decorated Olympian in women's bobsled history and the most decorated Black Winter Olympian as well. She has won 3 silver medals and 2 bronze medals in her previous 4 Olympic appearances. She is also mom to Nico and Noah, that we do talk about in our chat with husband Nick Taylor, a former bobsledder himself. And I spoke to Elana on October 15th as she was gearing up for the new bobsled season and getting ready to go for Olympics number 5. So take a listen. Elana Meyers Taylor, thank you so much for joining us. I am very excited to get to talk to you. I have been watching you probably since 2010 at that first Olympics. So I've been a fan for a long time. And you've been in women's bobsled pretty much as long as there's been Olympic women's bobsled. So how has that changed over your career?
Oh, it's funny. I was actually thinking about that today, and it was actually considering doing an Instagram post about it because it's been such a long career and I've had the pleasure of seeing a lot of things. But the coolest thing is I've had the pleasure of meeting a lot of different people and a lot of different women and being teammates with a lot of different women from all over the country, from all types of economic backgrounds, religious backgrounds, political backgrounds. So it's been a really cool experience. And I love people. I love being around people. So to have that kind of team dynamic and to be able to see it change and evolve throughout my almost 20 years of competing, it's been amazing.
You talk about your teammates. So each Olympics, you've had a different pusher. And your first Olympics, you were a pusher. So talk about having been a pusher, what you look for in your pusher.
So the good news is on my end is I don't get to choose the brakeman. And I say that's a good news is because we've had a very competitive brakeman pool ever since I've been a driver and even when I was a brakeman. So the decision on who's the brakeman and who's going to push who in each Olympics is very, very tight margins. And fortunately, the coaches choose it. I wouldn't want to have to tell somebody, hey, your Olympic dream is over or this is your Olympic dream. Although I imagine it's probably cool to tell somebody they just lived their Olympic dream. But regardless, those margins have been so tight. So for me, it's all about speed and strength and being able to push the sled fast, but then also being a great teammate and being able to do really good teamwork and being able to work together. Fortunately, in the sled, we don't talk to each other, so there's nothing going on down the track. But it's all those little things off the track. If you have someone behind you that you can trust, that you know who get the job done, then it makes it much easier for you as a pilot to just focus on what you need to do on the track.
How would you describe yourself as a pilot?
I am a control freak, which is why I became a pilot to begin with. I'm a perfectionist, which gets me in trouble all the time because during training runs, I try to find the perfect line and I'm trying to do everything I can to just figure out this puzzle. And so I lose almost every training session. If you look at a timesheet from a training session, you'll be like, this girl can't be competitive. Like, I'm like dead last in almost every single training session. And for me, it always panics me. I know this is my tradition, but I'm not a practice performer because I'm taking in the track, I'm studying it, I am changing things, I'm adapting and doing all this stuff. And then once race day comes, I just let it all go and just clear the mechanism, so to speak, and just go out and have fun and trust the training I put into it.
Has that changed over your career?
It's never changed. And actually, I was a softball player before that. And even in softball, I was not a good practice performer. I was okay, but I just wasn't a great practice performer. And then when it came to the game, I could turn it on and I'd go out there and hit dingers or I'd have a high batting average. But at practice, it just never came. And it was frustrating. And it still is frustrating from time to time, especially now in a time sport where every day coaches are comparing and trying to figure out like what you need to do with equipment and brakemen and like how you compare to the other nations and stuff like that. And I think I'm just frustrating for everyone, myself included.
Well, you've done okay over the years. Somehow you've managed. You added monobob pretty recently, when it became an Olympic event. What made you want to do more as you were later on in your career?
Well, the thing about bobsled in general is that men have always had two opportunities to medal at the games with the two man and the four man. And so we as women wanted two opportunities. And so me, my teammate Kelly Humphreys, and a couple other female pilots always fought for the opportunity to have two disciplines. We thought it would be the four women competition. It didn't end up being that, but they gave us the monobob. And so when we got the monobob, of course I was going to jump on it. Of course I was going to give it a try and see how it went. Now that I'm 41 years old, I still wish it was the four women because I'd have a little buffer on that push side of things. But I'm just grateful to have two events and have two opportunities to come away with the gold medal.
Do you think we'll ever see 4 women?
Here's the thing. I would love to see for women. I think it would be amazing, but I'm at the tail end of my career. And what I tell the younger pilots now is like, you have to make the decision if it's something you want. I wanted for women, and I think it's the way to go for the sport. However, I'm not the next upcoming pilots. I tell them it's like this is your movement now. This is your international federation now. You have to make the decisions about what you want this women's sport to look like. Like I've done my part in trying to progress the sport. Now it's your turn. Do you want to stick with monobob or do you want to go to four women? And if you want to go to four women, you have to make it happen. And you can make it happen.
Speaking of women's issues, obviously you're a mom now and you've got 2 boys and you're staying in Europe. I saw in an Instagram post for the season. How did that how is that gonna work and how is that come to be?
Oh, it's going to be chaos. So my boys have traveled with me ever since I had them. Nico, my oldest, starting in 20-21 season. So he started traveling with me back then, and all he knows is traveling around the world with bobsled. And so my youngest was at his first bobsled track at 3 months. I went back to Lake Placid and started sliding. So that's all they know. So fortunately, they're used to it. My youngest will come to me every couple of days and sign, like, get on a plane, go to the airport. It's like, no, not yet. We just got to wait a couple of days. So he's used to it. They're used to it. They're really great. We have a lot of help. And thankfully, I've partnered with Xfinity, and they've made it important to make sure that athletes are able to connect with their families. And through their direct support of me, it's enabling me to be with my family all the time. It's enabling me to not only bring my family along with me, but also connect with the family that isn't able to travel with me. So it's been huge to be able to even afford it and to be able to even do this, to partner with a company that knows how important it is. But long story short, it's going to be chaos. We have a nanny who travels with us. My husband will pop in from time to time, but yeah, it's chaos, but it's fun.
Did you ever go down the track before you knew you were pregnant so that they've actually been in the bobsled already?
So funny you should ask. So come to find out, doing the math and everything, it turns out I was pregnant with my youngest at the last Olympics, 2022 games in Beijing. I was pregnant. Didn't know, and would have made different choices otherwise. I don't think you should bobsled is pregnant, so I'm not recommending it to anybody. But what you don't know, he's a silver and a bronze medalist now, so that's pretty cool.
Speaking of some of the choices you might not have made, you do have a history of concussions. And how has that changed and affected how you train and how you race?
My history of concussions has drastically changed and affected everything because it's changed my risk tolerance. And what I mean in that is not necessarily going down the hill. Yes, I know it's dangerous. I know bad things can happen. But at the end of the day, bobsled is a difficult sport. It is mentally taxing, and you have to be ready. You have to be sharp and focused in order to go down the track. And when I was younger, I didn't put much energy into if I was feeling off or feeling bad or was sick or anything like that, I just keep going and go as many runs as I can and not think much of it. Now I'm much more calculated of the runs I'm taking. So I have to be on, I have to feel sharp enough, or else I don't get in a sled. And does that result in my training look different from some of my competitors? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, I have to protect myself. And now I'm not just sliding for myself, like I'm sliding for my kids too. And knowing that if something devastating were to happen to the track with me, then my kids are back at the hotel with the nanny. And what kind of chaos would that cause if they were trying to figure out what to do now if I'm out of it with a concussion?
And how fast can Nick get there? And how fast can
Mhm.
everybody? Yeah, because you're not close. Most of the races are in Europe.
Yes, yeah. So the whole season this year, unfortunately, with us being limited to only two tracks in the US, none of them are hosting World Cups this year. So we're spending the entire season over in Europe, starting on the Olympic track. And what that means is no Christmas here either. So normally we get at least a little bit of break, but our timeline is so tight between when they're choosing the Olympic team and the start of the season that we just don't have time to come back over. So we'll stay over there all season long. We're still trying to figure out what we're doing for Christmas. Haven't figured that piece out yet, but we'll make it special.
German Christmas markets. That's the way to go. Have you seen the track in Cortina?
I have not seen the track in person. That'll be our first stop in Europe. We'll leave about November 6th and get over there. And so that'll be our first World Cup race. I've seen a point of view camera going down the track. It looks like a pretty technical track up at the top and pretty long and flowing down at the bottom. So it should be a really good race.
How does that fit your style?
Oh, I make every track fit my style. So you kind of have to in this sport. And for me, it's a good thing and a bad thing. We will have limited runs, which is a bad thing for everybody, but it's a good thing for me because I have experience having limited runs and I have experience on new tracks and I have experience figure things out in a quick time frame. So my driving experience is going to carry me and it's a huge advantage. Also a huge advantage is now we've got three really strong women's pilots on the team and we'll be helping each other, trying to figure out lines together and those types of things as well.
I want to go back to that point, but I want to ask you, besides Lake Placid, which is obviously your home track, what's your favorite track?
Favorite track is St. Moritz, Switzerland. I have a very long history there. I've won quite a few races there. I think I've won more races there than in Lake Placid, actually. But yeah, and then it's also the place I got engaged, so it holds a special memory in my heart. I think I've been named to two Olympic teams there. We've had two Olympic team namings there, so it's a very special place.
And it's the only natural track.
Yes, yes. Only natural track in the world. It's smoothest track in the world, and it's a lot of fun to drive. If I could have my ideal situation after I retire, I'd retire to drive passenger bobs in Switzerland and just do that. I don't know what I'd do during the summer, but during the winter, I'd just drive passenger sleds in
I
Switzerland.
would get in the sled with you then, Alana. You mentioned earlier now you've got three pilots on the U.S. women's team. Talk about how that changed for you, especially when Kaylee came down from Canada.
Yeah, so it's always an interesting dynamic with the women's bobsled team. So we've always had three pilots. Now we're at three pilots who are constantly fighting for medals week in and week out. And so it is competitive within our team. But at the end of the day, the way I look at it is I would have to beat them regardless of what color flag they were competing under. So Kaylee coming from Canada, coming down to the US and transferring nations, like I would have had to beat her if she was a Canadian anyway. So and the other thing about me is I never really look at it as I'm trying to beat so and so pilot. I think too many people within our sport or sports in general get caught up in beating just one person. In my sport, trying to beat time. I'm not trying to beat any individual. I'm trying to beat time. I'm trying to go as fast as I can down the hill. At the end of the day, I've had plenty of races where I've won the race, but I've been disappointed because I didn't do my best to defeat time. And in the other hand, there's races where I haven't won, where I might have gotten second or third, where I've been happy with my performance. The 2018 Olympics is one of those cases. I was very happy with my performance. I was dealing with a lot. And also, we had some sled malfunctions. The sled wasn't built for that track. That made it really difficult to try and come away with a medal. So I was very happy with that performance, even though it didn't result in a gold medal.
What's your goals for Cortina?
2 gold medals, easy. And I say that because, of course, that's what I'm going to go for and that's what I want. But knowing that it's not just up to me, it's not fully in my control whether or not I win a gold medal. I'm going to do everything I can to put myself in the best position and see what happens. And then I'm going to walk away proud because if I do everything I can to win the gold medal, so win, lose, or draw, I'm going to be happy with it.
You're not the only mom on the bobsled team now. And I know the IOC has been talking a lot about making things easier for both moms and dads who are competing. Are you seeing that in reality?
You see it in reality in that more moms are making it happen, but largely the infrastructure still isn't there to make it happen. I mean, that's the reality of it. It is very expensive, especially for me traveling the whole season with my two kids on tour and having to be over in Europe and not having the opportunity to come back and needing to hire childcare. It's not cheap at all. And for most mothers, it's out of reach. It's just not possible. So I have another teammate, Jasmine Jones, one of my brakemen, who's a mother as well. And it's just not within her budget to be able to have her daughter over there. And it's heartbreaking. Like she spends her birthday away from her, she spends holidays away from her daughter. And you could tell she just wants to be with her. She wants her to be able to be at those moments, but it's not feasible. So we've come a long way, but it's mostly been in the way that people have done it and shown an example and then network together. Like I've been able to have the opportunity to talk to Alicia Montano and Allison Felix about how they did it and get tips and different things like that. But at the same time, we're in a unique position in that we have to spend a whole season overseas and a lot of winter sport athletes. So you've seen an influx of summer sport athletes be able to do it, but still very slow on the winter sport side because of the nature of our sports. I think we could do a lot more to create infrastructure and to create different opportunities for female athletes, but I don't think we're there yet.
For Beijing, was Nico able to be with you because of the COVID protocols?
Yes, so that is one of the ways IOC has done a lot to try and push women forward. Is they allowed Nico to be with me because I was breastfeeding, so he was able to come and journey with me and everything like that. I was isolated from him anyways, which is kind of crazy. So I didn't get to breastfeed him directly. And unfortunately, because I was strictly breastfeeding at the time, I didn't even have a pump. So being in isolation for 12 days away from him, that's kind of where my breastfeeding journey ended. I think it ended a little bit sooner than we both were prepared for. But, it's one of those kind of things where at least the IOC had given me the opportunity to have that chance. I don't know what it looks like for Milano Cortina. Of course, I'm not breastfeeding anymore. I know there are some other mothers who are breastfeeding, and I know there's some really mothers like Jamie Anderson, a snowboarder, who are trying to make a comeback and have really young children. I think her daughter is 5 months old, trying to make a comeback, which is just wild to me, and I'm rooting for her hard. So it'll be interesting to see what they come up with. I know there was talks about having a nursery at some point, like there was in Paris, but unfortunately, with the layout of these games, it doesn't really look like that's feasible. So if they do have any other ideas or anything coming forward, it'll be exciting to see, but we'll just have to wait to see. But Team USA has done a little bit to help provide funds. They started a new family fund for mothers and fathers, actually, for children under 24 months, which I don't qualify for either anymore. Kids are a little bit older, to help support those athletes. So that is encouraging. So we're starting to see glimmers of hope and glimmers of different things. I think we just need to do more still.
I know you're going to hate this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What's next after Cortina?
I don't hate the question. I think the good news is that I have time to think and that I'll have time to take care of that, because I will have so much to figure out once I get back that it will actually give me a little bit of space. So my husband says he wants me to compete another year, but at the same time, I've got to focus on what's going on with the children and what's happening with that. And so there's a lot of different things I'd like to do. My passion right now is within the disability space and my kids, and trying to figure out if there's an avenue for that for me to work to advance disability rights and different things like that. So maybe Special Olympics, maybe combining my love of both. I'm really not quite sure, but I know when I get back from the games and I've got school registrations, and Noah needs to be signed up for gymnastics and Nico needs painting lessons and all these other things. So I'll be quite busy while I take a second to try and figure out exactly what's next. But I'm looking forward to having that time to be able to, just be a mom for a second. If I am training still for the next year or whatnot, then I've got to get back to training within 2 months of coming back. But at least I'll have a month to try and figure it out.
And just keep weightlifting with one on each side.
Yes.
You'll be balanced. 5 Olympics. What's your favorite memory from all these experiences?
My favorite memory, hands down, is winning the silver medal in the monobob, but being able to come home and hang that medal around my son's neck, hang it around Nico's neck like that. There's no moment that could ever take that place. Even if I win a gold medal in Milano Cortina, like that moment of being able to have that with him. And after we had been through so much and COVID and not knowing how he would handle it, how I would handle it, all that kind of stuff. So that's a memory that will last forever.
See, I just manifested because I said 5 Olympics. So we're making Milan happen for you, Elana. I think we're at time. So thank you so much. This has been great. Thank you, Elana. And you can follow her on Insta at Elana Meyers Taylor.
We also talked with a couple of other people from Team USA Bobsled, thanks to our friends at the U.S. Army World Class Athlete Program. Lieutenant Colonel Chris Fogt is the head coach of USA Bobsled. He himself is a 3-time Olympian and silver medalist in the 4-man from Sochi 2014, where he was a pusher for driver Stephen Holcomb on the famed Team Night Train. And with him is Sergeant Frank Del Duca, who competed at the 2022 Olympics as a driver, finishing 13th in both the 2-man and the 4-man. He is currently working toward earning a spot on his second Olympic team. Both are members of the U.S. Army World Class Athlete Program. So we talk a little bit about that. We talk about coaching. We talk about driving. We talk about race cars. It's exciting. Take a listen. Sergeant Frank Del Duca and Lieutenant Colonel Chris Fogt, thank you so much for joining us. We love bobsled, so this is super exciting to get both the driver and coach perspective, because we haven't had a driver on since Nick Cunningham a long, long time ago. Sergeant Del Duca, during the season, you're constantly picking new partners. What are you looking for as a driver from your pushers? And separate out the 2-man from the 4-man, because that's a different dynamic.
Yes, it is a bit different. With 2-man, it's a little more straightforward. There's of course only 2 of us. It's a little easier to get synced up, and generally speaking, it's just easier to throw the best pusher back there and get some pretty good results. With the 4-man, there's a lot more going on. We have to coordinate 4 guys to jump in a sled at top speed and then go hit 85, 90, 95 miles an hour and make sure everything goes well. So there's just more across the board with 4-man. There's more coordination, there's more planning, there's sled prep. So there's a lot that goes into it. And sometimes if you just take the 3 fastest guys and just throw them together, it may not work. You may not make weight. We have weight restrictions. So there's just a bit that, goes into play there. And so when we change crews, it's generally, I wouldn't say it's by primary choice. It's because something may not be working or we need to see if something could work better. Ideally, we can make a team early on in the season, stick together, build the camaraderie, get some great results, and just get in a groove. However, if that doesn't happen, we have to find out how to make that happen. And so we will change, we'll do evaluations, we'll see where that puzzle piece, so to speak, is and how we can rearrange some things to get the best results.
Now, are pushers always in the same spot, or just switching them around from 2, 3, and 4 also make a difference?
It makes a difference. In my experience, it can make a difference, not always. Some people will always just be a bit better from one position for whatever reason. And sometimes it's best to just leave them there. But then again, if you are a pusher that can only push from one spot, you better be very, very good at that one spot. Because if someone comes along that's faster, you just lost your spot. And if you can't go anywhere else and can't contribute to the sled somewhere else, then you can no longer contribute to the sled, unfortunately, and you have to find a new spot.
What do you have to add to that, Lieutenant Colonel? Because you were a pusher.
Yeah, I was a push athlete. So there's kind of three things we look for: speed, power, and strength. So that's kind of a combination of an athlete that possesses all three of those things. Especially on a four-man sled, though, we start to kind of tend a little bit more towards speed. So as Sergeant Del Duca already mentioned, when that sled hits the crest and starts going down the hill, by the time the brakeman loads, you're going 26, 28 miles per hour. So they have to be fast enough to keep up with the sled and make it inside, because occasionally they don't.
What's the difference between strength and power?
So strength is the amount of weight that you can typically move. Power is the speed in which you can move weight. So think of a squat versus a vertical jump.
Yeah, I could see Jill's face. She got the image of the guys missing the sled.
Well, it helps to have that speed in perspective once you need to be in the sled, because that's a lot to get up to.
It absolutely is. And then you're trying to push, a bobsled weighs 400 to 500 pounds. So you're pushing this thing. And as Sergeant Del Duca mentioned, you have these four large humans trying to coordinate their movement into a, bathtub size space, wearing metal spikes on their feet. So there's a ton of practice, a ton of coordination that goes into loading into a sled fast.
I want to know what happens, if anything, if the four athletes or even the two athletes in two man, if you don't hit that bar at the same time, what happens?
Someone has a very bad time. The guy who's first has a very bad time because it's a lot easier to move that sled that's 400 plus pounds with some help. And when you hit it alone, it hits you back a bit more. So, and you can get left as the person if you're too late, you go to hit the sled, it's no longer there, and you hit the ice with your chest, and you got to get up and get in that sled to hopefully be there to pull the brakes. And I've actually gone down alone as a driver. I hit the sled, and the brakeman, we still don't know because they deleted the video if they were late or what, but they fell and like didn't know what to do. They were a rookie, so they didn't know, should I just get in no matter what? I was going, and it's kind of funny because he's an incredible pusher, and I had heard so much about him, but the sled felt very heavy. I'm like, man, this guy is not as good as I thought he was going to be. And I turned back and nobody's there. And so it was one of my first days in one of our competitive sleds. I was a development pilot at the time. And so I was like, well, they just gave me this thing and I'm not going to just let it go down alone. So I've got to figure out how to drive it down with a lot less weight and make sure it doesn't get banged up. So I took a ride down Park City solo, 100 kilos light or so, and but it was all good. But that can happen as well.
When you said you didn't know, it sounded like the poor man is still on the track somewhere.
Well, he was. I mean, he was face down on the ice. When I turned around, I was pushing, and it felt very heavy. I'm like, I know something had to have happened. This guy's not pushing nearly as good as. And I turn around, and he's kind of like, like looking over at the sled, arms up, like, should I run? Should I go? Should I stay? Should I put my head in my hands? And it all worked out.
Yeah, and with that, real quick, we call that the walk of shame, when someone either falls trying to load in the sled or they don't get in the sled. Because, like you said, the pilot and the sled are going down the track, and then it's just you and everyone's sitting there watching. Usually get a little bit of a slow clap and have to walk of shame back to the dressing room.
Okay, it was, I don't know, a long time ago, years ago when we were talking to Nick. Do you still have to buy your own steels as a driver?
No, No, now we are very fortunate. We have some incredible partners with the team who donate resources and time, and they are very, very good at what they do and very generous. And my understanding is the team will buy the steel from the IBSF, and then we give the steel to our partners who cut runners for us. And that's a huge help because when I got in the sport, I'm a big car guy, and I sold what was my dream car at the time to purchase half a set of runners just to put a down payment so the pilot wouldn't sell them to someone else. They were used runners, and I could afford half of them when I sold my car. So my dream car was a little cheap, and the runners were pretty expensive. So.
That's a big difference because we know there's so much money in bobsled.
That's right. And we're very fortunate to have the partners that we have. And runners, they're a little bit like car tires for a race car, where there might be different compounds. I won't say there's different compounds in the runner, but there are just different tires for different situations, just like you won't run the same runner everywhere all the time. So as an up and coming driver, back when I first started and prior, you buy a set of runners and you're like, okay, this is my set. And then you're like, wait, there's this other set too, and they go fast here or they go fast in this situation. I just sold my car. I don't have, so there's a domino effect to some costs when you are trying to get to the top because you have to have everything. You have to have the push, the drive, and equipment as well.
On that note, can we talk a little bit about the Cortina track?
Yes.
What runners are you using on there? But talk a little bit about how that track has panned out.
Well, it's quite tricky, especially at the top. And sometimes it looks like the corners don't really line up perfectly. And that's what kind of contributes to the difficulty. And I think it's a difficult track without being too dangerous, which is probably the perfect scenario because I love driving and I want to have my job and I want to show that I work hard and I want to separate myself from other drivers and have a chance at finding some speed. If it was too easy, it just turns into, the driver really isn't necessary. We can just push and hop in. I love that it's challenging. And then it has a couple different characteristics because it goes from being very active and you're doing a lot at the top with a lot of precision to at the bottom really letting the sled run and it's very flowy. So it's a pretty unique track and it's in a stunning location. The Dolomite Mountains are gorgeous and the sliding community in and around Cortina and Italy, they're very passionate. And it really is, I think it's an awesome thing for our sport, for the Italian Federation, the country, and it's really a fantastic track. And we've had a mixed bag of results. I think we had some quite good runs, and then I also made some mistakes. So I have some things to figure out still to fight for medals, but we were fifth place in the two-man and have some work to do there, and then iron out the four-man a bit and see what we can do.
When you're learning a new track, how much of it is I'm on the track versus talking to other drivers versus I'm looking at videotape?
With Cortina, no one had gone down it. This version of it, there was the old Cortina track, of course, but this track, no one had slid it. So it's an interesting process because the drivers will walk the track with the driving coaches, and the driving coaches will really take a look at the corner and basically explain a curve theory. And we write down what we think should happen, and then we go drive it and make adjustments. So it's kind of crazy to say that out loud because we have brakes in the sled, but we don't use them until the end. So there's no way to go through this at half throttle. You just go. So it's an interesting thing. And I will say tons of credit to our driving coaches because of course you make changes as the sessions go on and you find more speed, but I think we had a very good idea of what we should do for the track before we took a run, which is just a testament to our staff.
Yeah.
So for Chris, I was just going to ask, how do you coach for a new track?
Yeah, that's the unique thing about Cortina is that it was just completed mostly in March, really wasn't fully completed until this October. So in my experience going through my fourth Olympic Games now, this is the latest that a track has ever been completed. So we'll have the least amount of runs, the least amount of training on this track. So there's definitely a little more pressure and a little more angst in trying to make sure we get the lines right before the games, which are only 2 months away.
How does the new Cortina track compare to the old one?
Yeah, so I actually slid on the old one. I was very fortunate. That was my first race over in Europe, actually, was on the old Cortina track. The new one, as Frank Del Duca put it, it's very complicated up top and has some technical places, but it's more safe than the previous one. Like the all old tracks, they were built more narrow and they weren't built to handle the speed of the advances of technology and equipment that we have now. So when I raced there in 2008, there were quite a few crashes. There were less crashes this time around. So it's still a technical track, but not quite as dangerous as the old one was.
I'm curious from both of you, what would be your favorite tracks that you've raced on?
I guess I'll start. My favorite track is in Königssee, Germany, which has been off tour the last couple of years, but it'll be back on tour. We're hoping by next year.
That's right. There was a nature accident, right?
Yes, a
there was
mudslide.
Landslide. A mudslide, yeah.
Jeez.
And actually, I raced there as a brakeman, and then again as a driver. I went on a little training trip as a driver. And at the time that I went there, I said, man, this is the coolest track to drive, because it seemed like three different people built sections of the track and then got together. It had three different characteristics. And I like that because I want that responsibility up in the front seat to figure things out and try to find speed. And so if you were really good at one part, you had to be good at the other parts too. You couldn't just be a certain style of driver. You had to find the speed in the track all the way down. So, but now there's so many tracks that are a true joy to drive. And I try to make the track that I'm at my favorite track. And that might sound cheesy or whatever, but when we go to a track, I obsess over the POV video and my notes. And a lot of times you have at least pretty good memories at the track or the excitement of learning a new track. So the last survey I filled out, I put Cortina as my favorite track because that's where the Olympics are going to be. And we were there at the time. And so Cortina is my favorite track now. But we're in Lillehammer now, and I'm really enjoying these runs. So right now, the ice is great, and I love Lillehammer. So I would say Cortina for now.
What makes great ice?
Smoothness.
I'll give my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah, smooth. So that's what people don't understand. It's not like a hockey rink where there is a Zamboni that smooths out the track. There are a bunch of men and women who work on a track crew with chisels that go down there and shave the entire track. So it's a very cumbersome process. And when ice is chattery at 85 miles an hour, it feels like you're in a paint mixer and your head is just getting shaken around, and it's pretty violent and loud and not very fun to take trips.
Exactly. That's what I was saying too, is just the smoothness of ice is number one, what we notice. And then the consistency is another thing we appreciate, just because as sleds go down the track, a 4-man sled is around 1,400 pounds, and then you're hitting 3, 4, 5 plus Gs, and it can really do some damage to the ice if the ice is soft or brittle or not in that right window for hardness and temperature. So that's what I appreciate the most about ice, is how smooth and consistent it can be.
Side note, then what about St. Moritz? Because it's natural.
That's right. That in itself is just so impressive. And it's the feeling going down that track is so different because there's no cement expansion joints. It's seemingly no noise. You just hear the wind, and it's an incredible experience to slide St. Moritz. It's just unlike any other track. And the ice generally feels very, very smooth. It's a bit more weather dependent, but if the sun and the temperature is just right, it's as smooth as glass and you are flying.
How loud is it in the sled in general?
It's pretty, that's what surprised me because I watched for years, and when I actually got in and did it, I was like, this is so much louder than it seems. It's just things are rattling and it's very loud. There's a lot of vibration, and it really is kind of violent in the back of the sled.
Yeah, that's something just to highlight too, is just people don't appreciate until you are at a race in person. Just the speed and the noise and the violence of the sport is just amazing.
I want to ask about these cement expansion joints. What is that Is that the equivalent to going like over a crack in the road?
It's exactly like that. It would be, the way it feels like is on a highway, those bridges that will have little expansions in them,
Oh yeah. Okay.
and you kind of feel the car like over it just a little bit. That can be amplified if the ice conditions aren't great because every sled is kind of hitting that, and then it can create a little divot, and then the divot gets bigger each time, kind of like a little like mud, like a dirt road with a little mud puddle. Just gets worse and worse every time you hit it.
If you end up being in a wrong order, you could hit that divot and have fun.
That's right. I would say, and it isn't as dramatic as like a road falling apart, but you would be surprised how large of divots will be created in the ice. And it's probably similar to ski racing. The first few people have a really nice surface, and then the last few people to go have quite a different surface than the first few.
And all of a sudden, I forgot how order works in bobsled because don't the faster sleds go at the end, or is it
So
random draw?
in the first heat, you have the faster sleds go up front, but in heat number 2, it's slowest to the fastest in the top 20. So if you're ranked higher, you have an advantage in the first heat, but then they try and keep things more equal. So in heat 2, you're actually off later on.
Then
And
does
you
that
can have
repeat on 3 and 4?
Yep. Then heat 3, same thing. The fastest are up front. And then the very last heat at the games is slowest to fastest from 20 to 1.
And then, Jill, you mentioned a draw. That would be more so in a typical World Cup race, a non-four heat, like a World Champs or an Olympic event will be 4, but a World Cup will be 2, and the first run will be by draw. The second run will be last to fast.
There are so many variables. Like how much as a driver, how much do you pay attention to, or how much can you even know how the ice is changing from, I mean, are coaches looking at that?
It's hard to on a race day, but you can see it a bit and you can feel it. And there are times where you will make adjustments. Sometimes it doesn't matter. It's just not going to feel quite as smooth, but you do a lot of the same stuff.
And just to highlight that real quick, Joe, I think that's one of the important things about, or the unique things about our sport. It is a outdoor sport. One of the things we try and build into our athletes as coaches is control the controllables. And so if the ice is breaking down, you're not going to get out there and with a hose and try and get the ice fixed because you can't. So you just kind of just accept it. But you start to think, oh, this ice is terrible. I'll be slow. You'll push slower. You'll drive worse. You kind of get in your own head. So it's important to have that mental toughness and that resilience to control what you can and focus on the things that are in your control and still perform the best that you can.
I'm going to be careful on how I phrase this question because I'm realizing as I'm about to say it, it sounds weird. What you're saying is what a lot of sports coaches say, but I'm curious as to what's unique about coaching bobsled. What specifically are you doing, not at the races, but just sort of that day to day that's different than what a track coach does, especially because so much of the pushers are doing track like things?
That's a very good point. That's, with our sport, we can only practice it half the year when we're on ice. So we spend a lot of time in the off season and during the season just having these types of conversations. What if this goes wrong? What if this happens? And as Sergeant Del Duca said, we spend a lot of time doing mind runs and doing, because we only get 2 to 3 practice runs a day. It's not like track and field. You can go out there and run 5 days a week, do 5 to 8 runs or heats. Just how taxing our sport is and just the amount of wear and tear on the ice. We only get 6 training runs a week maximum before we race. You really have to spend a lot of time doing visual drills and watching film and being very precise. When you have a chance to practice, you have to make it count. And I guess the last thing I'll say is I think one thing I've tried to bring as a coach is as a member of the Army's world-class athlete program, just really trying to take some of those skills and things that I learned being in the Army in some high-stress environments, trying to bring those lessons learned to the bobsled team. And I think it has paid off these past few years, and I think helped our athletes perform and kind of absorb that moment and that stress the best that they can.
So
I agree.
With WCAP, both of you have long extended your initial enlistment. You've both been in this a long time. So what about the program and being in the Army has been don't want to say good for you, but good for you.
I guess I'll go first real quick. So I've been in for 18 years now, and it has been very good for me. I could not have had the career in sport that I had without the Army's world-class athlete program. And for me, first and foremost, be able to wear the flag on both of those uniforms and represent our country in sport and across the world in exercises and different schools that I've attended with the Army is just an absolute honor. But I do think that the mental toughness and the resilience gained from being in the Army just definitely helps with our sport. Because again, we're an outdoor blue collar type sport. We move our own sleds. We crash going 85 miles an hour. We have to deal with pain and cold weather extremes. I think that mental toughness I've gained from, trainings and going to Iraq and different field training exercise has definitely made me a better bob sledder.
Absolutely. I'm 6 years in, and I've learned so much about teamwork, team building, personal accountability, and just figuring out a way, basically. You're presented with a problem, figure out a way. And I think going back to our previous thing about ice conditions, we frame things a little differently. Of course, we get excited when we get a very good draw. And if we have a not the best draw, it's like, well, we're going to go catch some people. You just find a way to frame things for leading a team and setting a path forward. So I've learned a lot with that, and then just immense support from the Army and the world-class athlete program for myself and my family. I don't know if I would be able to have a family. I think I would have to choose between bobsled, a family, a job, all these things. And the Army and the world-class athlete program has given me so many life lessons, but also support in life that has been really second to none. I have a wonderful wife and 2 sons, and it's been an absolute joy and honor to do what we do.
A lot of the WCAP athletes that we've talked to, their mission is also talking about the program at schools and inspiring students, but Lieutenant Colonel, you got deployed. So talk to us about that, and what did you expect? And also, how did being deployed help you as a leader and now as a coach?
That's a great question. So for me, I actually wanted to join the Army before I found the sport of bobsledding. So my intent was to be in the Army all along. I was a college athlete going through ROTC, and I kind of found bobsled while I was in college and figured I could do both, be an athlete and be in the Army. So I actually volunteered for my deployment. So I competed at the Olympic Games in 2010. I was in Iraq about 3 months later. Definitely a change of pace and a change of lifestyle. I was there for 12 months. But for me, the biggest thing that I gained when I got back is I just think the mental toughness and my perspective, going back to what Sergeant Del Duca said, was just that much stronger. So I would look at my counterparts while we were warming up and just get goosebumps knowing that I had experienced and done things they've never done. And I am more mentally strong than they ever will be, having been through what I've been through. So it just gave me that edge, and I felt way more confident and became a much better athlete after my deployment, mostly for the mental strength and just that change in my perspective that it provided me.
And you were in Sochi for bathroom door gate when,
Yes, ma'am.
when the door was
Yes.
busted down.
Yes, there were some, every Olympic Games is unique, where some conditions, where some things are done years in advance and some things are done the morning of your arrival. And so the construction at each location is a little bit different. But yes, that was quite the story when that broke in 2014. I still don't know if the door was actually stuck or if my teammate just didn't know if it was a push-pull type of deal. He's used to trying to push. He pushes bobsleds, and he just forgot that there's occasionally you might have to pull.
So I have a feeling, had you been in the room, things would have ended up very differently, because I think that Army brain would have kicked in and said, no, kicking in the door is not the answer.
Yes, there was probably a better, solution to that problem. To his credit, he found a way out of the bathroom, but I don't know if that was a requirement at the time.
It's a different kind of resilience.
It is. Yes.
Sergeant Del Duca, in that you mentioned finding a way. So bobsled, Germany, traditionally very strong. How do you find ways, and search both of you, but let's start with Sergeant first. How do you find ways to try to get to that top echelon?
Well, we really have to come together as a team and just take a deep look inside and say, okay, why are we doing this? And we love the sport. but we want to win. And what do we have to do to win? Okay, they push very, very fast. They have very good equipment and they drive well. Those are the big things. They have a lot of staff, all those things. They have a lot of support, but we do too. And we have to find a way to separate ourselves from that. I think if you just step in and do the same thing they're doing, or you're doing almost playing their game, they're very good at that. So they're probably going to beat you at that. So we have to find a way to separate ourselves. I think we have some of the best athletes in the world. So if we just have to be just build on our athleticism and just create this start or this synced up push that is just separates us, then that's what we have to do. I'll take a lot of ownership and say, okay, if they're pushing faster than me, I have to push faster. If they have better lines than me, I have to have better lines. And how do I do that? Okay, we meet with our push coach, we meet with our head coach, we meet with our driving coaches. So we're really not leaving any stone unturned. And I'm putting a lot of responsibility on myself to push better and drive better. And I think on our day, we're as good as anybody. We just have to have more of those days and figure out what makes those days happen. And that's what we're in the process of doing. And we have a lot of support in doing that.
Is it ever frustrating when you have such a dominant team like that in the sport where it's just, oh, they won again? You know, that constant chasing the same teams.
It's first and foremost, I have to say, they push the top starts more often than not, and they have good drives. So they would be hard to beat either way. But they do have a lot of support with their FES program. And just being honest, sometimes that can save them. There are some times where we're right there, we're in fourth place. And if you look at the runs, maybe that was our day, and sometimes the equipment can really be a difference. But until we're starting first off the hill and having the best lines on the hill, we really, you just have to give credit where credit is due. And on the whole, they are the ones to beat. But we've seen them be beaten, and as great as they are, some of the best to do it, they are beatable just like everybody else. And yeah, we're doing everything we can to be one of those teams that stands on the podium.
Can you feel the magic though when everything is going right? Do you feel it in the sled?
Yes, I think I'm not alone in being, as a driver, you're pretty hypercritical because you notice all your mistakes. So it's very rare to get out of the sled and go, oh, that was it. That was just a fantastic run. Normally, you hope to have, an A minus average where you're like, hey, that was solid. I'll take that in a race, but I have to clean this up. Every now and then you get out of the sled and you kind of just go, I barely know what happened. You almost like, you just get into this state where in the back of your mind, something special is happening. And sometimes it continues the whole run and you get out of the sled and you go, I don't know what I could have done better. But that's, of course, the seat of the pants feel. And if you slow it down in 1/8 speed, there's always something you can do better. And in the end, you could always push faster. So there's never really a perfect run, but sometimes you come close.
Lieutenant Colonel, can you see that as a coach? Can you see it in a sled when there's more? I'm going to keep calling it magic, but there's a feeling and you've felt it in the sled yourself. Can you see it, and how do you help drivers and pushers understand or see what they're doing right?
But that's a great question. I think one of the unique things about our sport is that starts off the hill. So we spend a lot of time together off the ice. So we've been in Europe now for over a month, and we're here all the way through the Olympic Games. Our sleds, because they are so expensive and they weigh a lot, so we don't travel a week here and we're home for a week and we go somewhere else for a week with our equipment. Once we're in Europe, we're here for about 3 to 4 months at a time. So kind of talk about how important that teamwork is, that visualization, that kind of starts off the ice. And then you see that translate on the ice. And you see it with the loads. Guys don't have to count their steps. They know when to load in the sled. You see it in the rides down there. You can just feel the confidence and kind of feel the team coming together, and you can definitely feel it happening. And we've been fortunate this year already. Our first 2 races, we've had quite a bit of success. The men have, John Del Duca has been top 6, both of his 2-man races. Our women have all been top 6 in their 2-man races. So we're definitely peaking at the right time. But it really starts with that preparation off the ice. You can't just expect to arrive on race day and think things will go well. It really takes that preparation, that attention to detail beforehand in order to have that flow type of state that Sergeant Del Duca just described.
What would success, I mean, obviously a medal, but besides the medal, and maybe not obviously a medal, what does success in Cortina look like for both of you?
I think, truthfully, a medal is what success is because we want to have our best day at the Olympics on the biggest stage. And we've gotten fourth a handful of times. We were best of the rest. I truly believe we're medal contenders. I just know it's going to take our absolute best, and we need to do that at the Olympics. So success would be medaling at the Olympic Games. But I will counter that by saying we won't be failures, or it won't be, we can still be proud because I know that we are doing everything we can. So do everything you can, prepare, perform, and then live with the results. But we are preparing to do what it takes to win a medal at the Olympic Games.
And so that was a perfect answer. That is success, is winning a medal at the Olympics. That's our goal. That's what we train for. That's what we spend countless hours training for 4 straight years to have that opportunity. And that's our expectation. We're one of the few programs, actually the only program in our sport of bobsled that's won a medal at every Olympics since 2002 with the introduction of women's bobsledding. We're the only country to do that. So we definitely have a tradition of excellence to maintain. Especially being soldier athletes, that's our job, to win medals and be the best and win. So that's definitely our goal. But we know on that day we just have to give our best, and if we do, then we will walk away with some hardware.
Speaking of hardware, Lieutenant Colonel, you have some hardware.
I do.
But you were upgraded, and I'm so curious about that experience as to you won a bronze at the time, and then you get how does that process work, and what was that experience like as an athlete?
Yeah, it was definitely a unique experience. It's pretty crazy because it took about 5 years when we won the bronze medal for all the arbitration and legal mumbo jumbo to kind of work itself out. And going up against the Russians is obviously a very hard thing to do in the court of law because they have a lot of money to pay the right folks to usually have things go their way. But we're fortunate that it came down in our favor. And it was somewhat anticlimactic because I actually put my medal in the mail and just mailed it back. And it was unique because it's kind of still a little unique because, obviously you win at that time and it meant a lot to me. And all my pictures, all my photos are with that bronze. Of course, I'm happy that they caught the Russians cheating. I'm happy to be upgraded, but it definitely kind of felt a little detached having gotten a medal that I just didn't have the same attachment with. And also on top of that, not to take this down a negative path, my pilot who I'd won that medal with, the great Steve Holcomb, had passed away prior to that. So it kind of felt weird, the 3 of us being there to get the medal upgrades. And we were very fortunate. His parents were there, and I've known his dad, mom, and his 2 sisters for a long time. They were both there to be there in that moment. But it definitely felt a little less than I think it should have, knowing that he was cheated out of that moment to kind of be crowned and given the recognition that he deserved.
Losing Steve Holcomb was obviously a huge blow to the program. How was that recovery process? Because you were athlete, you were coach, you were kind of on multiple sides of that.
Yeah, me and Sergeant Del Duca were fortunate. We both had a chance to be in the back of his sled. And the first thing I just want to say, one thing about Steve Holcomb is he was just a phenomenal human. I mean, I was with him my rookie year as his alternate. Some of his brakemen kind of treated me like an alternate, like, hey, here's my bags and carry their stuff. Here's our runners. But he always said, thank you. He was so appreciative of all the work that we did. Was just the nicest, kindest person for how great he was. But it definitely took our program, and Sergeant Del Duca can speak to this. He came in a couple of years before he passed. I mean, it took us, I think we're just now actually 4 to 5 years later, really pulling out of the hole that he left from a talent perspective and just feeling that we're once again competitive with the best nations in the world. He just left a huge hole.
Yes, I agree wholeheartedly. I think we're actually we're over 8 years. And it's, I think, only the last couple years with these top 6 2-man performances that we've come anywhere near some of the results that he did. And yeah, I'll just echo that he was such an incredible human and teammate. And he took 2 rookies on his sled. I was one of them. And he treated us just phenomenally. He understood when we made mistakes, and he took time to explain things. He didn't make things too stressful, and he just was a very kind, compassionate person. And he happened to be incredibly talented at driving bobsleds. And so when someone like that leaves, and also, he didn't complete an Olympics and go, okay, yeah, I'll be retiring. It was going into the Olympic year in 2017. And so there really wasn't, I mean, I'll just say it, there wasn't a male pilot ready to take his place. I think potentially, maybe that's harsh. The program wasn't ready to move on without him. We just didn't have all the pieces at the right place at the right time. And also just grieving such a loss, I think, made it quite difficult as well. So yeah, there's really no easy way to put it. It was just a huge loss, and one I don't think anyone was ready for.
Lieutenant Colonel, as a coach now, and also you're behind the scenes for a bit, do you think about like knowledge capture, or how do we capture what these athletes have? Because at some point they'll leave, sometimes sooner than we anticipate. How do you prepare for that now, or are you preparing differently than the organization used to?
No, that's a great question. I think that definitely made us kind of change the way we thought about that knowledge transfer and how we get athletes up to speed a little bit quicker. And one of the huge things is we have some really good partners in big data and big tech that have kind of helped us, I think, or will help us these next 3 to 4 years as we go through these current games and on to the next Olympics, just kind of capturing the lessons learned and a lot of the data down the track that historically we haven't had the bandwidth or the expertise to do. There's some pretty cool things with big data and artificial intelligence that we are partnering with some people that I think are going to help us and kind of trim that gap and help our pilots and athletes learn a little bit quicker.
What kind of things are you learning from big data now?
I don't want to reveal too many of our, secrets right now with some of our partners, but I am an intel officer. But I think, so we do have these Omega boxes on our sleds that give us how the sled is moving down the track. So there's things we're learning about the push. If an athlete, when they load, if they pull back on the sled, if they load aggressively into the sled, if that helps us with our velocity. So there's definitely some things that we've always thought about and we thought we knew. We call it, bro science, which is usually correct, not always. But now we're able to challenge the theories we've had for a long time and really determine if what we thought was correct or not. And if it's not, we're making some changes now that will definitely help us here in the next 3 months or so.
There's a lot of things we do by feel because there are so many variables in the sport. We've mentioned ice breaking down, how athletes may load in the sled. So it's very hard to quantify things sometimes of, hey, I'm losing time. I think it's turn 3 because of this time interval seems to be where we're losing speed, which is all available on the timing sheets. Okay, I can go change curve 3, but it's very hard if the velocity was different or something is just different with the ice. It's very hard to isolate things, but with some of the data we can pull from our runs, we can see an actual change in performance or speed in certain parts of the track, and I can match that up to video and go, okay, that is what I need to do in that corner, or I'm not doing that again, it's slow. Based off data, not I think, that felt better, so I think it's faster kind of thing.
I think that's one of the misconceptions about our sport too, is that even though there's no tires, there's no engine, there's not a lot of technology in the sleds, there's a lot of technology that goes into creating the most high performance sled as possible. So we're trying to constantly leverage partners and tech partners and people to help us make these somewhat rudimentary objects as fast as they can go.
And then within the parameters that the rules allow.
There's always rules. If you make it too fast, then they find a way to change the rules. There's always this push and pull type of thing that's very constant in racing sports.
We've been called the Formula One of winter sports because there really is a formula, and you're just trying to find out how to make the fastest package in that formula.
So Josh Williamson is very special to our show because he was the first interview we ever did. And his mom listens to the show. So we're going to say something nice about Josh as a pusher.
If you make me, I will do it.
That's pretty easy to do.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. Well, he's
When-
currently on Sergeant Del Duca's sled.
Yes,
Yeah, we know.
we know. We've been watching him.
Yeah, I've watched Josh dedicate his mind, body, and soul, everything he has to this sport. He's had some very high highs and some low lows, and I've just seen him carry himself in a way that's admirable. He really brings the team together, and he had quite a hiatus from sliding because of injuries and surgery, and I was the driver that took him down for the first time post-surgery, and the amount of cheering and hooting and hollering he had in the braking stretch, you can just feel the passion he has for the sport, and that resonates through the people around him. So, yes, his dedication, his performance, obviously he's a very talented person, but that's what's obvious, and I want to speak more on what he brings to the team and those around him. So it's been a pleasure to work with him, and yeah, it's exciting time sliding with Josh.
Well, that was for Mama Kay. She's been very supportive of the show, so we want to give her a shout out too.
Speaking of teaming, how much of that is a factor when you're putting together the list of athletes who's going to make a World Cup team?
That is again, another great question. I think part of that, so we have criteria that we try to make as objective as possible, but it's not like track and field where it's that clear cut that you just go out there and the top 3 people perform because it's just them racing down a lane. Our sport is very team focused, whether it's 2 women or the 4-man sled, the amount of coordination that goes into riding fast, pushing fast, and being able to handle having a roommate on tour for 3.5 to 4 months a year. Team dynamic definitely plays a large role in how well a team performs. So we look at how teams carry themselves, type of person they are, how they handle conflict, because conflict is going to happen. And we try to tell our athletes conflict is fine. It's how you handle that conflict. And we've had some teammates that don't handle conflict very well, and it definitely tears down a team. And so it's something that we take into account, that people, they just think, oh, let's put the 3 fastest guys or girls on a hill and we'll win. That's definitely not how it works in most sports, especially in our sport.
And
when you're riding down a hill, 80 miles an hour, hugging each other, arms around each other, you have to be a unit and work together as a team in order to be fast.
I mean, you've both been pushers, and how has it been when you've had a driver who may not have been a great leader? And then, Sergeant, as a driver, how do you be that leader?
Well, then it would be on us. Let's say if we don't have the leadership coming from the driver, it would just be on us as the push athletes to step up. And sometimes there is one in particular that'll take lead on some of the equipment things, getting the sled ready. We do a lot of day-to-day maintenance on our own sled, so some of that will just come from one or all of the push athletes. But I think it helps if the driver takes up more of a leadership role, because we're thinking of the equipment in a more specific way than some of the push athletes will, because it's really they don't have to worry about it. So it does help, and I'm learning a lot about that, because I think I had one way of communicating early on. I just would deliver it like this. Well, that doesn't always work for everybody, and you have to find a way to bring everyone together in times of stress, and there'll be good days, that's when it's easy, and then the tough days. And sometimes we drive several hours and now it's time to unload the sleds, and it's easy to kind of go to bed, but we have to do some things. So finding that balance and that way of communicating with 3 or 4 other people has been something that I've worked hard at, because it's important. And I think it starts with me. And so I think I'm still learning, but definitely finding the ways of communicating to a group of strong and different personalities is important.
Yeah, and just to go on top of that, I think Sergeant Del Duca, kind of a analogy is the driver's the quarterback of that team, kind of that most important person who kind of keeps the team culture. They're in charge of that. And I think he's done a great job, and I've definitely seen his progression as a push athlete, as a brand new pilot to now. And I think the Army has played a large role in that, as he's learned to be a better leader and take ownership and better understand how to work with different types of people. And I've seen him progress, and that's part of the reason he's had as much success as he has had these past few years is his development as a leader.
I have one last question for Sergeant Del Duca. You used to race cars. How is it turning left and right now?
Well, I never did any circle track. I did a very grassroots form of racing called autocross. So it was similar to bobsled. You walk the track, and there are either built-in corners of a racetrack or just cones on an airstrip or a parking lot. And you walk the track and decide your lines and go see how it pays off. So it's strikingly similar, but I don't have a throttle or a brake or a transmission to shift. So
All right. Well, thank you both so much for being on and diving deeper into bobsled. It's always great to talk this sport. We love sliding.
Thank you so much for having us. Again, we look forward to having some positive results here in about 3 months in Milano Cortina. Very excited about these races.
yes, thanks a lot. It's been our pleasure.
Thank you so much, Lieutenant Colonel Vogt and Sergeant Del Duca. You can follow Frank on Insta at Frankie Del Duca and Chris at chris.vogt. We'll have links to all of the socials in the show notes. You know what else we'll have a link to in the show notes?
The Milano Cortina fundraiser.
That is right. We are gearing up for our third games in person, and this is quite an endeavor for a very, very tiny podcast to do this financially. We will be producing 32 daily episodes for you to give you the feel of what it is like to be at the games. And we've had listeners say it's the closest thing you can get to being at the games. And they were at the games, so they knew.
I know that was the funny comments that we got in Paris was people who were there were enriching their experience by going through our adventures with us on the show. So that was really special. But I made an offhand comment last week about people being our mascots. And I absolutely want to lean into it because if you've got a teenager or a dad, or worst of all, having to buy a gift for your father-in-law, our thank you gifts can really help you out here because that person
put old parents on the list too, people who have everything.
The people who you can never think of what to buy them, they can be our mascots for the day during the show. And that is really fun. So we can post a great picture of them. We embrace having people as mascots as well. And I think that would be so much fun. Or if you've got a little kid who adores the Olympics and wants to be a part of it, they can be our mascot for the day.
That would be awesome. We will have a link to the Milano Cortina fundraiser in our show notes for you. It's also, if you visit flamealivepod.com, it's at the top. And you'll get a pop-up too. It's really important that we have your continued support. We have had so many supporters so far, so much that we've been able to make a deposit on some accommodations for the Paralympics a little bit sooner than I had planned. So thank you so much for enabling that to happen because that takes a little stress off of us knowing where we're going to stay during those games. Also, looks like that's coming in under budget too. So we are using your donations responsibly. Again, go to flamealivepod.com, click on the fundraiser link, and support the show's efforts to give you a better experience with the games.
Trambusto.
What does that even mean?
It means a commotion.
Oh, okay. I like that word.
I know, me too.
And I would put money right now on we will be hearing that word a lot. Maybe not a lot, but we will hear that word at least once in Milano Cortina.
It is the Italian version of ooh la la.
A lot of news from Milano Cortina coming out.
A lot of trambusta.
That's right. That's been quite the kerfuffle over the hockey venue. So it came out in the news that the ice surface of the new hockey arena that is still being built, test event that was scheduled for December, postponed till early January. The ice may be smaller than NHL ice. And the IIHF, which is the International Federation, they had approved a certain dimension of ice. NHL ice is a little bit different. It's a little bigger. And so players have less room to maneuver. It could lead to some dangerous situations. This made a big stink in the press, so big that Milano Cortina put out a special statement. And somebody had a bad weekend putting together that statement. saying that the ice had been signed off on. Yes, it will be a different size than the NHL rink. It's going to be the same size as the ice in Beijing 2022. That's consistent for NHL dimensions for arenas in their Global Series games. The Athletic had a great article by Chris Johnston that said the hockey arena situation shouldn't be a surprise because construction lags also happened for Torino 2006. And according to Jukka-Pekka Vuorinen, the ice hockey director for Torino 2006, that venue also did not get a test event because of a miscalculation in design. They had to carve stands off to make a door that was big enough for the Zamboni to get through.
So on the good side of this, Declan Farmer, our para ice hockey player, said that they have been told that 15 inches from each side of the neutral zone is what's going to be taken out.
Oh,
so that
okay.
the area behind the net will be the same as what they're used to, but that the neutral zone will be slightly smaller, so that if anything, we will see more offense
Which
than we would have otherwise, which is not necessarily a bad thing if you're trying to get an exciting tournament.
There you go. So bright side look is that. So NHL employees toured this new venue in late August, and it was a construction zone with no infrastructure, and the practice rink had not even been started. Progress has been slow. Sounds like things did not go well during a meeting on December 5th. So the NHL sent staff to Italy to help them, especially with the ice formation. There is a long to-do list, including the fact that the floor was covered with construction materials, so they could not anchor boards and therefore could not make ice at the time. This may have changed in the days since, because as we record, it's December 17th. So a lot of things could have happened. And as with the sliding track, they have put tons of people suddenly on this on multiple shifts. So we'll see what happens. I'm sure there's going to be a venue, like we have said.
It may be outdoors on Lake Como, but we're going to have ice hockey. And we'll see what happens. And at this point, the NHL has threatened to pull its players. I just don't see how that's going to happen at this point.
I don't think so either. The building is supposed to be done by February 2nd. I mean, they're going to have this test event in the beginning of January, but the building should be done, not finished, probably, by February 2nd. Who knows what the experience will be like in person, but we've said preview for next week's episode where we talk with our friends from Anything But Footy. You're looking at something that will be done enough to look good on television and done enough for players to play on. And
we will let you know what it's like in person. It'll be interesting. Oh, we got to get there. We got to get there like day 1, day 2 at most, even day -1. That's got to be one of our absolute first stops, is seeing the hockey tournament and seeing this venue.
Yes. Yeah. Speaking of attending an event in person, ticket sales are at about 70%, probably a little bit higher now that we've had a few more days. Close to 1 million tickets have been sold. The resale platform is now open. I checked it once. There were a lot of pages of tickets. So
okay.
I would say ticket sales are close to 70%. I would imagine if the games were tomorrow, the attendance would be a lot lower with people trying to sell their tickets, but we'll see.
But sometimes that happens. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No.
Sometimes that happens simply because you bought hockey tickets or you bought a ticket and now you're trying to swap for when your team is actually going to be there, or you thought someone was going to qualify and they don't. So that is not so odd.
True. So we'll see. You're getting the push, and I bet Italians are getting more interested now that we're getting close, and they're like, oh, hey, this is coming up. Maybe Christmas gifts are in the offing. So we'll have to see about that. Teams have qualified for the figure skating team event. They will be USA, Japan, Italy, Canada, Georgia, France, Great Britain, Korea, China, and Poland.
Well, that's got to be Poland's first appearance in the team event.
I would not be surprised if it is. That's going to be a good one.
Oh, I think you've got USA and Japan.
For sure.
This is going to be fun.
It's going to be a fun battle for all spots on the podium. So that's going to be good. Team USA has a honorary coach now, and that would be one Snoop Dogg. So
Is he doing every job? He's like the Ryan Seacrest of Team USA in Olympics. He's getting every job.
So his job is to publicize the Team USA fund, and he's partnering with Fanatics on Coach Snoop and Team USA collections. And he'll probably go around and be a little bit of a hype man along with what he's doing for NBC. And speaking of tickets, I am surprised this is happening with Milano Cortina announcing performers who are going to be taking part in the opening ceremonies.
They are doing the opposite of what Paris did. Paris, even as the show was going on, we couldn't figure out who people were. Milan is telling us now who's going to be performing at the opening ceremony. And it may be to work up some excitement about it.
Yeah, so Mariah Carey was announced as going to sing in the show. And then actor Pier Francesco Favino will also take part in the show too. So we're going to get some big names. I'll be interested to see if they announce anything else, because usually, like, this is always under tight wraps what's happening in the show. We don't find out how the show is going to go until the day of, usually, and we get this very cagey embargoed document that tells us what's going on, but it's always right beforehand. But Milano's doing something a little different.
And speaking of tickets, LA's got some ticket news for us.
That's right. The ticket draw registration will open on January 14th, 2026. Sales for Olympic tickets will begin later in the year, and Paralympic tickets go on sale in 2027. So this registration will allow you to secure a time slot for purchasing tickets when they become available. Ticket prices start at $28. They go up from there. Don't know how many $28 tickets there will be, so just keep an eye on that if you're looking for cheap tickets. The official ticketing service provider is AXS and Event.im, which is different. Alibaba, I think, has been the last one for Milano Cortina and Paris. On Location is going to be providing hospitality packages. Those will become available later in 2026. This is the time where I go, LA, just slow your roll.
Calm down.
Yeah, let's let Milano Cortina do their thing for a while. You're excited. You've been doing a lot. Let's just take it down for a couple months. But generally, we are on the same process as we have been before. You register your intent. They have a lottery for slots. You get a window of a day or a couple days to buy tickets. You see what's available. And if you don't get what you want, or you don't get a great selection time, don't worry, there will be more tickets available.
I know, we've got years here, people. Everyone stay calm. I mean, I understand them trying to get excitement going while kind of riding on the coattails of Milan. And maybe, LA's excitement could also help Milan, because if people are looking for the excitement, they'll find Milan. I hope.
Let's hope so. We have a little bit of news from the International Paralympic Committee. The IPC has announced 5 candidates nominated to run for the 3 available spots on the IPC Athletes Council. They include Shukflastani, Declan Farmer.
Good luck on that, Declan.
Elections will happen during the Winter Paralympics, and new representatives will be presented at the closing ceremony. So there are, 5 names total. The other ones on the list are Adam Hall from New Zealand, a para-alpine skier, Markus Salcher from Austria, who is also a para-alpine skier, wheelchair curler Mia Larsen-Sveberg from Norway, and para-ice hockey player Tyler McGregor from Canada.
Welcome to Shukflastan.
It is the time of the show where we check in with our team, Keep the Flame Alive. These are past guests and listeners of the show who make up the citizenship of our very own country, Shukflastan. Got some results.
Bobsledder Bree Walker won gold in monobob at the World Cup in Lillehammer. Elana Meyers Taylor finished 12th, and Frank Del Duca with pusher Josh Williamson finished 21st in the 4-man, and Adam Edelman finished 26th.
We are getting quite the roster in bobsled.
I know. We got sliders galore. Basically, any sliding event, we're going to have somebody in it except skeleton.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So if we can get to sliding, we're going to see one of our peoples.
All right. At the Luge World Cup race in Park City, Utah, Ashley Farquharson finished third in women's singles to get her very first singles World Cup medal. And Siobhan Forgan and Sophia Kirkby finished fifth in women's doubles. Siobhan and Sophia also competed in the team relay, finishing third.
U.S. speed skating officially named Corinne Stoddard to be part of the short track Olympic team.
Shooter Ginny Thrasher is starting a talent development rotational program at Eli Lilly in Indianapolis. She will still be involved with the shooting community, maintaining her skills training program and doing an annual clinic.
Speed skater Erin Jackson sustained a hamstring injury and had to sit out the races at Heverveen. This past weekend at Hamar, she finished at or near the bottom of the standings for the two 500-meter races and the 1,000 meters. Get well soon, Erin. And congratulations to decathlete Jordan Gray Egerth, who welcomed son Andrew Lester Egerth Jr. on December 13th. And she said in her Instagram post that we're all home and happy.
Yay, another
More Shuklastan babies.
Note to patrons of Shuklastan at our bonus content levels, we are finishing up our series on whether or not you can learn how to become an Olympian by reading Olympians' memoirs. So look for the last 2 installments of that coming soon. Plus, we are going to have some bonus figure skating and biathlon content for you as well that will be dropping over the next couple of weeks. It's a super exciting time to be a patron, I think.
It is, and I may have a little extra from our Anything But Footy. That I've learned to keep record going.
All right. And we have a review of the week.
So from YouTube, Anne Boleyn 6168 had just listened to our Lisa Carrington interview and said, probably the best Lisa Carrington interview I've listened to. Such great questions asked.
Oh, thank you very much. We appreciate that. And if you would like to be considered for our review of the week, leave us a review on your podcast app of choice if you can, or on one of the other platforms we're on. That's YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and we also have a Facebook group, Keep the Flame Alive Podcast, that we would love you to be a part of. And that's going to do it for this episode. Please do not forget to support our fundraiser and help the show provide you better coverage from Milano Cortina. That's at flamealivepod.com. Thank you so much for listening.
And until next time, keep the flame alive.